Hi, this is a video for those who love learning new things and would like to learn from animals. And in particular, we're going to take a lesson or two from animals to be more successful and to thrive as humans. We are going to have a look at some evolutionary advantages, survival and thriving strategies, and different skills, talents, and abilities that animals have that make them successful in the animal world, so that we can tap into that as human beings. Does that sound crazy or impossible? Well, it really isn't, because we have been doing that throughout our history. If we look back, well, we can find totem animals and shamanistic practices and things like that. But nowadays it's not that uncommon either. You probably know someone who has a tattoo of an animal on his or her body, and it's usually a predator, and that tells us something. Well, it's not that strange if a person buys a t-shirt with an image of an animal or a little figurine on a statuette, and because once again it's an unconscious way to connect with a certain animal a person feels some affinity with, and to identify more with it. And just think of any number of mascots or superheroes who for sure take quite a lot from animals. So as we can see, that's a very common practice. And so we are going to do something along those lines, but in a more conscious way. And maybe you already have an animal in mind that you think you can learn something from. And I'm going to talk about certain species that might appeal to you. And we'll start with a couple of questions. So first, I would like you to think about all the different examples of adaptation that you can find in the animal world. Well, adapting means thriving, and nature has been very creative and very ingenious, helping animals to adapt to their habitat and to the changing environment and to the necessities of life. And I'd like to give you a quote that I came across as I was doing research and preparing this material, because it's really true, and it applies both to animals and to us humans. She who is able to adapt will not perish in any circumstances. And that is why let's look at certain animals that are not only adapting but thriving. And here is another question for you. What do otters and cheetahs, hyenas and sables, wolves and lynxes have in common? Well, it's not that difficult. I'm sure you got it right. They are all predators. And predators are not just aggressive, fierce, killing machines, but they have a lot of amazing qualities that we can tap into. And I'm going to talk about that later on. But now that you have already thought about that, and you have some ideas, I'm quickly going to just scratch the surface and mention some of the strategies, abilities, and features that animals display that shows the range of their thriving potential. Well, there's of course the color and the mimicry mechanisms. It's the speed of attack, speed of movement, and also speed of processing information. It's their sensitivity and incredible um, sensory perception. Its ability to withstand harsh, severe um, circumstances, temperatures, lack of oxygen or water or food. Some animals are able to go several weeks without food. Isn't that amazing? Well, its fur and ability to produce offspring. Well, and there are some that are not so well known and not so obvious that I would also like to mention here. Well, for example, homosexual behavior can lead to being more successful at producing offspring. Well, at least in certain kinds of flies. It has been shown that male flies who engage in this kind of behavior actually more successful in getting mates and having babies. That's incredible. Well, another fascinating and awesome, in my opinion, abilities that some animals have is embryonic diapause. It's the ability to conceive once the circumstances for having babies are better. So it means that the sperm has been deposited in the uterus, but the embryo doesn't start developing, and it's kind of frozen for some time. It can take up to 9 months sometimes, and only then, when it's spring or there's an abundance of food, for example, that the embryo starts developing. Isn't that cool? How great would that be if you could have postponed your pregnancy until a better time, huh? Well, deers, antelopes, giraffes, lizards, some birds can do that. So I think that we are sometimes less advanced than certain kinds of animals. And the more I find out about animals, the more I tend to think that way. And having a huge brain is not always such a great advantage, as shown in certain kinds of turtles and tortoises that have to spend a lot of time underwater. Because a smaller brain means that it requires less oxygen and is really helpful. So nature has helped certain animals to actually decrease the size of their brain to be better able to withstand their natural circumstances. And did you know that moray eels have 2 sets of jaws? So this is pretty handy when it comes to grabbing and holding on to prey. And those are just some of the fascinating aspects that we don't normally think when we think about animals and their potential. And maybe we are better able to identify with mammals. And so here I'm going to have a look at certain kinds of mammals that display astounding abilities and qualities. And I'll start with moles. Well, as we know, these creatures are almost blind, but that doesn't put them at disadvantage because they have acute sense of smell and they have very sensitive vibrissae on their body that serve as tactile sensors, and so they can detect movement, pressure all around them, and they have no problem navigating underground. And their front paws evolved into very handy and powerful spades, as you can see from the picture. And there is a kind of mole that is particularly interesting and fascinating, and it's the star-nosed mole, because its nose does look like a star, and it's an incredible smelling and perception organ. It has 22 tentacles that are simply phenomenal because they are covered with over 25,000 of minute sensory perceptors, and they look something like that. And so they are simply excellent at detecting food, detecting movement all around them, and they are the fastest eating animals. In fact, their speed is so spectacular that they can detect food like a slug or a worm, grab it and eat it so fast that a human eye cannot even see that. But that's not all. They are also able to smell underwater, and so hunt underwater just as efficiency. So can you imagine this, having this kind of efficiency and effectiveness in your action? Can you imagine being so fast, so agile, basically working, achieving your goal with a lightning speed? So that's incredible, and that's something we can tap into as well. And here's one more animal that is equally marvelous and unbelievable, or maybe even more, and it's the naked mole rat. It might not be the cutest animal in the world, but it is really, really remarkable, and for many things. Well, it is the longest living rodent, and they display hardly any aging at the cellular level, and they are immune to cancer, and that's why they have been studied extensively, because scientists want to get to the root of this secret, for us to also be cancer-free and aging-free. And these creatures feel no pain, and their skin looks really weird, but it gives them that kind of advantage because they also produce some certain kind of chemical that allows them to have not only such flexible skin, but also be immune to all sorts of outside stresses and aging agents. Naked mole rats can't really control their body temperature, so they are basically cold-blooded, and they can survive in low oxygen conditions. In fact, in one of the experiments, they could go for as long as 18 minutes without any oxygen at all. And when the researchers decided to put an end to this quite cruel experiment, animals were able to go back to norm, to spring back to life displaying no signs of brain damage. How amazing is that? And another amazing thing about them is that they don't drink any water because they consume enough fluids from roots of plants, and they are eusocial animals, which means they live in colonies, similar to ants or bees, and that means that only the queen can procreate and the rest of the population are soldiers or workers. But that shows that there are so many ways, there are so many strategies in which creatures can survive and thrive even in the hardest of circumstances. Now, let's have a look at sea otters now. These are very smart and cute animals, and they are remarkable for their resourcefulness. As you can see from the picture, they often wrap themselves in seaweed to stay on the surface of water, which helps them not to be thrown out into the open ocean, also during sleep, because they used to sleep on land, which was abnormal, but because they were hunted for their fur, they stopped doing that and they started sleeping out in the ocean. But because there are so many dangers associated with that, they had to come up with strategies and different ways to be safe, and so they discovered that they can wrap themselves in something like laminaria seaweed, or they can hold paws together, which they do. And they also wrap their babies in seaweed when they go hunting, and they are clever enough to use tools. So they can find the stones that they can use for opening crustaceans, and so it means that they have to find the right kind of stone, the right so that's big enough, heavy enough, but not too big, not too heavy. And they can also crack things open using rocks and other solid objects. So they're not only adorable, but quite clever. And they have been used as a totem and as a protective animal, as you can see here on an illusion protective amulet. And now to badgers. There are different kind of badgers, and the one that you can see is an European badger. These are the kind of badgers that I'm most familiar with and used to, and I'm going to say a few things about them and about how fascinating these animals are. So they are very good diggers. They create whole cities underground called sets, and they are landscape engineers, and in fact these structures, the sets they build are so good, so reliable, that they can last for centuries. And there are many that are quite old and are not only used by a different generation of badgers, but by other species of animals, like maybe rabbits or mice and foxes sometimes, which badgers are not always happy about. They are very clean animals, and so they keep their homes clean. Um, they renew um, uh, the grass, the leaves that they put in there regularly. They use toilets outside. They never use latrines inside their homes. And whenever one of their kind dies within a set, they close off that part of the burrow and never use it again. They are omnivorous. That also gives them further advantage, and they hibernate during winter, and they are known to be aggressive uh, when it comes to protecting themselves or their offspring. And they can even fight off a bear. Badgers also cache food, displaying some signs of being frugal and thinking about future. And North American badgers are also incredible creatures, and they are known to team up with coyotes in a very interesting kind of mutualism. That is a relationship between different species that is beneficial to both. And there is footage of that it is a very friendly relationship where both the badger and the coyote benefit. And it works like this. Two animals combine their different strengths and so that makes their hunting more successful, because coyote is better at running on the ground and chasing prey in the open, while the badger is better at digging and getting to the prey if it goes underground into a burrow. And that's how they divide their responsibilities, so to speak. And this has been shown to actually increase the success rate of such hunting. And once again, it shows that both animals are actually very clever and very resourceful. Now, a few things about a stoat, or a short-tailed weasel, that is also known as ermine. Whatever it has, it's white winter fur. So this guy is not only very cute, but also quite resourceful and clever. And as a matter of fact, as any member of a weasel family, it's highly resourceful, ambitious, courageous, agile, energetic, and downright adorable. So it not only has a black tip of its tail that can be used as a bait for its prey, but it can also distract attention for bigger predators that hunt stoats. But the most amazing quality that it has, in my opinion, is its ability to hunt much bigger animals than it, for example rabbits, that it's really fond of, and to use a really ingenious trick that's called death dance. It's a way to hypnotize prey and fool rabbits and hares, and it looks like the stoat is going crazy. It's hopping and jumping and running around, lying on its back, twisting and shaking, and the hare is really confused about what's going on, which allows the stoat to get closer to it, and it normally ends up with the stoat jumping on the back of the hare and biting the back of the neck, thus immobilizing it and then dragging it into its home or for stashing. And the photo captured by a photographer shows this moment here. So these are very cunning animals, but there are other animals that are also just as intelligent, but in their own way. For example, raccoons. They are really good at adapting and surviving in different kind of conditions, and nowadays they are really advancing into the urban habitat, and they are getting comfortable with living in this kind of conditions because the food is abundant. They don't really have to hunt, but they need to get better about figuring out what to do about moving cars, not to die on the road. But knowing that they are quite clever and quite smart, I think that they will sort it out quite soon, and there will be no deaths, or at least fewer deaths on the roads for them. So a few tricks that this animal can use: it pretends dead, it plays dead whenever the danger is too great and it can't get away. It's really good at using its front paws that are very similar to a human hand, and is extremely sensitive. So they're able to manipulate objects, to open lots of things like food containers or trash containers, even if they are built so to prevent animals from doing that. But raccoons are good at that as well. And they are great learners. In fact, they are very curious, inquisitive, and playful, and that's what helps them develop their brain, develop different abilities that help them survive and learn. So here are a few of inspiring examples from the animal world for us to also get better at being adaptive and successful species. And now let's come back to the topic of predators. Predators in general, and what makes them the top of the food chain. As I have mentioned, they have a certain advantage over their prey, either being faster or smarter or stronger. And so these are the qualities that we can try to tap into and take for ourselves. And here's a list that I made, but it's of course not complete, and feel free to fill in the voids and add something to it. So apart from ferociousness and fierceness that might come to mind at the word predator, let's focus on other qualities like courage and fearlessness, because such animals are brave and fearless when it comes to hunting and protecting themselves and their territory. There's a lot of risk involved with hunting and protecting territory, in fact, for predators, and they don't always survive that. They are very fast, agile, and that comes in a variety of forms. So some animals are good at running fast, some animals attack fast, some birds of prey descend with lightning speed. So there you have it, a variety of speed um, strategies, and of course attacking with that lightning speed and precision is another feature that I'd like to focus on. And any predator by default is a purposeful, driven, and result-oriented being, and only predators have a goal that they are going for, and other qualities help them to succeed at that. So an animal like that has to be smart, has to be clever, to calculate and predict, and also to make fast and good decisions. And of course that requires as well energy, dexterity, and being really active when the moment is right. And something that I've said quite a lot about is being really resourceful and smart. And finally, being curious, inquisitive, but at the same time careful when learning or investigating something, or going out to broaden your horizons. So I suggest that you choose a quality from this list, or maybe you have something else in mind that you think you can benefit from. And I invite you to think of a particular animal that could be a good mentor and role model for you. Maybe it's a mammal, but it doesn't really have to be one. Or maybe it's a whole family of animals. That works too. And so I will give you the general framework of the exercise that you can do. Feel free to do it and to try different forms of this exercise. Maybe it's better done in a meditative state, in a form of meditation, visualization, or just you can listen to my voice and try to do that. And there are different ways to do that. For example, you can imagine the animal that you've chosen on your inner screen. See it in its natural habitat. What's it doing? How is it feeling? How is it moving? Is it fast? Is it slow? Is it active? And see that quality, that skill, that strategy that you would like to have, and see if you can somehow tap into that and somehow pull and put on yourself as a kind of a veil, or maybe some kind of energy, some kind of substance that flows out of this animal onto you. If that sounds like something you would like to try, or maybe you would like to imagine yourself as this animal. Try to enter its skin, its fur, and try imagining being that animal. So how does it feel in this animal's shoes? How do you move? What do you see? What do you smell? What do you feel? Does it make you feel a certain way? Does it make you want to do something? And try to tap into that. Maybe you can find a way to anchor that ability or that sensation or that energy. And so I invite you to experiment with this exercise, with this meditation, because there are different ways to do that. And of course, this is an intuitive kind of practice, not a logical one. But as I have already said, we humans have been doing that for centuries, so there are already built pathways in our collective unconsciousness, so why not use them? And I wish you success with that. And if you would like to share your insights and your views, so maybe add something to what I have said in this video, feel free to do that. Please drop a comment and let me know how it went for you. And I also invite you to other events that I'm doing for women. These are free online events every Friday at 9 a.m. Central Time or 2 p.m. GMT. And in these events, we simply connect, look inside ourselves, share and sing. So we combine the joy of singing with the bliss of self-discovery and personal growth in one. And if that's something you would like to do, you can find the links and more information in the description to this video, as well as more information on what I have mentioned. And I would like to hear from you. So let me know what you think. Like the video if you found it useful or interesting, and subscribe. Thank you.